Welcome to the Montana Sportscast podcast as we talk about high school sports around the great state of Montana. If you like our broadcast, please click on the subscribe button below. And we have Boomer, Stan Ozark. I don't know whether to call you Boomer or Stan, but I'm going to call you Boomer because that's what I'm used to, Boomer. So, Stan Ozark, up there in Glasgow, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been here at the radio station KLTZ and Mix 93 in Glasgow for 34 years. I've been doing sports now for 30 years, so covering Glasgow Scotty sports and then area Class C sports, whether it's football, basketball, volleyball. I've done track, I've done softball. I've been at the state wrestling tournament and done wrestling. You just learn to cover it all, and I've been doing that for over 30 years now.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. I know you've done some stuff for me in the past, doing some play-by-play, and we are going to have to get you on and talk a little bit of wrestling because I do want to cover that. We'll have that as a separate show, Boomer. But let's talk a little bit about that Seiko Whitewater Hinsdale, the North Country girls team up there. I had Rocky Erickson on the other day, and I kind of made a prediction that I think this is maybe the only team in the state that may go number one in the polls from start to finish.
Yeah, I would venture to say, in fact, just this morning in preparation, I was kind of taking a look at their schedule, and they probably won't get challenged much um, for the rest of this season. They did have kind of a game last night against Scoby. Scoby actually led them by 10 in that first quarter. I was watching that game, and but they fought back and ended up winning really easily over Scoby. But this is a North Country team, I think, that'll go undefeated in the regular season and will sweep through the District 3C tournament easily. And then we'll see things might get a little more challenging as we get up into the Eastern C division. But this is a fun team to watch. They have Tegan Erickson, and Tegan gets a lot of publicity. Tegan comes in. They have her listed at I believe 6'1", 6'2", and 6'2", and then Paige Wasson is 5'11". And the great thing about these two girls, they've been playing since they've been freshmen. They've been all-state freshman and sophomore years, both of them. Is they run the court so well, and they can handle the ball. They can lead the attack, and of course, Amber Erickson. You talk a lot about her. She's had such success at North Country, and they're well coached. But if you want to see a fun team play, they are fun to watch. They have a stifling defense. They put a lot of full court pressure on, force a lot of turnovers, get in the open court, and it's not just Wasson and Erickson. They have the two Labries, Shelby Labrie and Cora Labrie, two guards who can shoot the ball well from the outside as well. And then Matea McCauley, she comes in, she's 5'9". They have another 5'10" girl, Kendall Scheffelmeyer. She comes off the bench. So this is a fun team to watch. And I agree with you completely, Bob. I think they'll be number one in the polls all the way through the regular season.
You know, I got the video up there, their game against Glasgow the other night, Boomer, and I know Amber pretty well, I guess, and but they play a lot like our teams did here at Reed Point when I was coaching back here with Bill Tripwood. The full court pressure. Everybody talks about the scoring, but I watched most of this game this morning getting ready, and you know, like I said, people talk about the scoring, but the defense is what impressed me with this team, full court and in the half court as well.
Yeah, they'll do different things. And here's the real impressive thing, because there are teams that can put full court pressure on and cause a lot of create a lot of havoc. This is a team, they're just so long, right? I mean, Tegan Erickson is 6'2", long arms. Wasson, long arms. They're tipping passes constantly. And even teams with the best guard situations are really going to struggle against this North Country team. But what do you talk about when you talk about a team that is this good? And Amber does a really good job of trying to schedule tougher competition for them, because uh, that could be a problem, but they went down and they beat Roy Winifred 43-37 in that second
Right.
week of the season. Kind of finally got past them. That was a big win for them. And then Circle is on their schedule. Circle's been playing well. They beat Circle earlier this year. They have Circle one more time. But other than that, Scoby played them a little tough there for a bit last night. There's not a lot of competition, at least on their schedule. Now, I think things will pick up once they get into the divisional tournament, as it did last year when actually Plentywood beat them in the championship game.
Right. And Plentywood right back there again this year.
Yep.
In the polls, they're rated. Well, one poll that I got in front of me right now, they were rated number 3 in the state with a 3-0 mark going into this week. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. And that's good that they can get out and play like a Roy Winifred and some of those teams in preseason, I call it,
Yeah.
before they get into their conference play. But
You know,
yeah, I go ahead.
the other thing about this North Country team, Saco, Whitewater, Hinsdale, when you think about what they've lost over the last couple of years, they lost JC Erickson to graduation. JC is Tegan's sister. JC went on, is at Montana Tech. The year before, they lost Kaya Wasson, who's at Tech, and Caitlin McCauley, who's doing track at DSU. They've lost 3 all-state players in the last 2 years, and they haven't missed a beat. That
Yeah.
gives you an idea how strong that program is. And they took third at state volleyball this year, and I interviewed the seniors on that team, including Cora Labrie, and then the coach and Matea McCauley. Interviewed Matea as well, and Sienna Stroman. But I was speaking to the coach Char Wasson, and I said, how do they balance volleyball and basketball? Because as a volleyball coach, obviously you want them in the gym working on that. And she said, basketball comes first, volleyball is second. And they were just tickled to finish third at state volleyball. That was a huge achievement for them. But volleyball isn't the number one priority with North Country. It is basketball, and it shows.
Yeah, and I actually talked to Amber at the state volleyball tournament too, and she says the way she put it, she says we're just a bunch of basketball players
Yeah,
trying to play volleyball,
that
and
might have been
it's
what
very
Char told me too. Yeah.
yeah, but no, they're going to have a lot of success, and I'm sure they're going to be at that state tournament in Metra in Billings come March. Just the experience they have, and like you say, the tradition and they just reload every year.
They just have a lot of talent. And another crazy thing about this North Country team, the 3 schools, Saco, Whitewater, and Hinsdale, there's not a lot of enrollment there. And I believe they have like over 22 girls out for volleyball or for basketball. An incredible number for this co-op.
Right.
3 very small schools, and they just have a pile of kids out. They have 6, 7, 8 freshmen out for their basketball
Wow.
team. Yeah, that's
Wow.
that's pretty impressive. And if anyone has a chance to watch the Lady Mavericks, whether in person or watch them on the NFHS, do it because they are fun to watch. I look
Yeah,
forward to
they are.
following them.
Yes, for sure. Well, let's you got another game there you want to talk a little bit about the Glasgow Scoby overtime game? Let's hit that one.
Yeah, Scoby ends up beating Glasgow 42-41. The Scotties, a state tournament team last year, still looking for their first win of the year. They are winless, and I think they felt they let one slip away in that contest. But Scoby, a solid team as they always are. Jed Leckvold, the coach up there, does a great job, and they're always so competitive. They play very good defense, and they're really young, and they're going to be a team to watch in the next couple of years. But I was thinking about this when you were asking me about things to talk about. But Scoby beats Glasgow 42-41 in overtime. And as we were broadcasting that game, it was interesting because the shot clock comes to play in that. Scoby had the lead. In fact, they led by 8 at one time, late in the fourth quarter and into overtime even. And Glasgow came back both times to, in fact, chances to win, and the Scotties weren't able to do it. But that shot clock playing into it because Scoby wasn't able. I could tell you in past years, Coach Leckvold would have taken the air out of the ball, right? And you got a 5, 6
Yeah.
point lead, couple minutes left on the clock. You're gonna And Glasgow at that time only had committed 1 or 2 fouls. So it would have been it taken quite a bit of time for them to get into the bonus. But with that 35-second shot clock, it forced Scoby to run that offense, and with that 35-second clock. And so there's that shot clock coming into play in these close games at the end.
Yeah, and I think that's when we're going to see it the most, especially when we get into um, postseason play. I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
going to come
close
to play
games.
even more. So,
But
but
Scoby again, I just want to mention they played North Country, Saco Whitewater Hinsdale tough last night, led by 10 in
right.
that first, I think it was even first quarter. But they have a real young team and a player to watch. That Carrie Taylor is a senior. She's rock solid for them. But they have some real young players. Kennedy Cromwell is one of them. Maya Green is another. And Katie Onstead, a 6-foot player for them, a young girl. She's going to be one to watch for with the Spartans.
All right. Well, let's before we get into our last topic, let's talk a little bit about the different districts. Let's start with the 2B and girls. You got Malta on top there in the standings going into this weekend. Boomer, I tried to find scores and update these, but it was really tough this morning. But Malta, Poplar, Wolf Point, Glasgow, and Harlem on the girls' side for 2B. What's your thoughts there?
Well, we saw Malta play on Tuesday. They came over to Glasgow and played the Scotties, and the Emmets are tough. They return, I believe, 4 starters from last year's team. Very good defensive team. They won both their games this week. They played 3 games this week. Actually, they won
Yeah.
all 3. They beat Glasgow, Rocky Boy, and Roundup. They are a state tournament team from last year. The Scotties actually beat them in a loser out game on Saturday morning. One of the first times Glasgow had beaten Malta in years. But this is a Malta team that shoots the ball well. They have 3, 4 shooters, and they play very, very good defense. They'll put a lot of pressure on the ball. They have a 6-foot freshman they're starting. I'm not sure where these schools get these 6-footers because Glasgow never finds them, but it seems like a lot of teams are coming up with 6-footers. And
Yeah.
so I would look for Malta definitely to be the team to beat in the 2B and maybe the Northern B. And I think for sure you'll see them at the state tournament again. After that, in the District 2B, I think it's pretty wide open. Wolf Point's there. The Scotties could be Poplar, Harlem, but it's going to be Malta. They beat Wolf
Okay,
Point
let's look
earlier
at the
this year.
boys' side. You got Wolf Point, Poplar, Malta, Glasgow, and Harlem is going into this weekend.
Yeah, it's Wolf Point obviously is the team to beat. They beat Wolf Point, or excuse me, they beat Malta earlier this year, I believe before Christmas, a 1-point win for them. I would have thought maybe Malta would have been the team early on, but Malta last year had 3 freshmen that they played, 3 freshman guards, Trayton Wilkie, Bodie Brendan, and Stockton Oxart. And those kids are now sophomores. They played like seniors last year. If you watch them at the state tournament, they were dropping threes down like crazy. Those kids have improved. Dave Costin is the coach in Malta. And the first thing you're going to think of when people know basketball, they play really good defense. The only thing, and this is early, obviously, size wise, they might be susceptible to bigger teams, but they're going to play good defense. They'll force some turnovers and they shoot the ball really well. Wolf Point, I haven't had a chance to see Wolf Point. They're playing extremely well this year. They sit
Yeah,
atop the conference standings, and right now they're the favorites, I would say.
yeah. All right, let's jump into the Class C girls. Let's just kind of throw these, kind of talk about it as a division more so than the
Okay.
districts. In 2C, you got Plentywood, Culbertson, Circle, Savage, Bainville, Floyd Lake, Fairview, Westby, Granora, Ritchie Lambert, Brockton. And then in the 3C, you got Saco, Whitewater, Hinsdale, Scoby, Luster Christian, Fraser, Dodson, and Nashua. But couple things, Boomer. You got one district there that's got a bunch of teams, and the other one's got 6 or 7 teams. So that's kind of why I want to talk about it as a division rather than a district.
Sure.
Just there's that one district's got so many teams in it.
Yeah, and I think they start their district tournament on a Monday and run it to the following Monday. It is a huge district tournament, and I think they get 5 teams that advance to divisional out of there, and the 3C gets
Right.
3 teams is how that works. The 2C, there's always good basketball teams coming out of the district at 2C, boys and girls. We talked about Plentywood for the girls. Obviously, they're going to be real tough. I think Fairview is a team that will be extremely strong for the boys out of the district 2C. But it's so hard because you're kind of just looking at scores and you try to find scores. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But you just go back to those programs that are always tough, and usually you pretty good. I know Freud Medicine Lake for the boys. They've got Mason Detman still. He's an animal. He's a junior,
Yeah.
probably one of the best basketball players in the state. So you can't look past them. I don't think they're as strong as they have been in the past. But one player, and I'm sure they have more than just Mason Detman, but he could take over a game himself. And for the
Yeah.
District 3C for the boys, Luster, Luster Christian, they're ranked number
Oh,
one in
yeah.
the state, and I've seen some people make some comments on social media like, well, why would they do they deserve it? You know what? They do. I mean, they've got a really great team. They were featured in one of the, I don't know if it's 40, I think it was 406 MT Sports that
Yeah.
featured Randy Reddig's team, and he really said some really cool things. I think about how it's easy to take a look at that roster and say, well, they're just bringing these foreign kids in, but like Randy said, some of these foreign kids didn't play basketball, and so they've been in the program now for 3 or 4 years. They're not bringing these kids in for 1 year; they've been there,
Right.
and they're fun to watch. Luster just missed on advancing to the state tournament last year for the first time. They got beat in a challenge game, but I thought they'd be at the state tournament last year. They were loaded last year too. They're going to be fun to watch in this postseason. I'd love to see Luster make the state tournament for the boys this year.
Yeah, we'll have to get some video on them as we go on with these shows throughout the remainder of the basketball season. And but no, the 2C and 3C. The thing that always amazed me about the Eastern Division, Boomer, especially when I was coaching, we always prepared for defense up there. Those
Yeah.
teams, I think we played awful good defense, but the Eastern Division in Class C was a tremendous defensive division.
I like to think that the Eastern Sea really has had some good coaches move through those top programs, and they've built really good programs, probably based on defense in a lot of cases. And a lot of those Eastern Sea schools don't have the enrollment that some of those Southern schools do, or even the Western schools or Northern, but they make it up. I mean, the Eastern Sea, whether it's boys or girls, they're always having an impact at the state tournament for sure.
All right, let's jump into your final topic real quick,
Yeah.
and I'll turn you loose.
Well, this is just kind of a fun little deal, and I'm not sure if Glasgow Scotty head coach Paul Yoakum appreciate me talking too much because he's bringing him along slowly. But the Scotties have an eighth grader named Cade Hudema. Cade is 6'4", and he's playing C squad JV, and they bring him up. He plays a little bit in the varsity against North Country. He had 20 points against Scoby this week. He had 14 points and 9 rebounds. Pretty good lineage. His mom is Linda Cummings from Malta, who went on to play for the Lady Grizz. His dad is Rod Hudema from Scoby, who was a really good athlete. But Cade, 6'4", eighth grader. I was talking to his dad on Friday, and I said, "How much more do you think he'll grow?" And Rod said he thinks he's got another 2 to 3 inches in him. But he's 6'4" as an eighth grader, and this year he'll have an impact for the Scotties. He's just getting more and more playing time. He's a big kid, good presence inside, and he's going to be someone to watch for. If you're wondering about kids coming up, watch for Cade Hudema, an eighth grader for the Glasgow Scotties, who's playing varsity.
Yeah, I think those kind of kids are always fun to watch.
Yeah, especially with, they're young, and it's always interesting to see how they react when you throw them into a game. And he and of course the 2 games that he got most of that playing time in against North Country and Scoby, he was the biggest kid on the floor. Obviously, he got a shot blocked in the Scoby game. He got a shot blocked, probably which has never happened in junior high for sure. But he came down at the other end and blocked the shot of the kid who blocked his shot. So he's but good temperament. He's just going to be fun to watch.
All right. Well, Boomer, this kind of wraps us up. We're kind of on the timeline here, but want to thank you for coming on and enjoy talking to you in the future.
You bet. Appreciate it.
There's a lot of great horse stories, but a dead jockey winning a race? Well, it did happen. The date was June 4th of 1923 at the famed Belmont Park in New York. 35-year-old jockey Frank Hayes was aboard a horse named Sweet Kiss. Midway through the race, Hayes suffered a heart attack and died, but he somehow stayed in the saddle, and his horse, a 20-to-1 long shot, ended up crossing the finish line first. It was at that time, and to this day, the only time that a jockey won a race after he died. By the way, for the 35-year-old Frank Hayes, it was also his first win. This is Rocky Erickson.
And once again, we want to thank you for watching and listening to our podcast here on Montana Sportscast. We want to thank our guests that come on and join us each day and talk about sports around the state of Montana. Until next time, take care, God bless, and support those high school student athletes.